Learn the most empowering hiring techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with your host, Rick Girard.
All right, so remember that time you hired a person that you were convinced would be great. And they were for the first few weeks. And then, dun, 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 things started getting weird. Backroom conversations, complaints about small things, uncomfortableness around constructive feedback, and general negativity slowly crept in as they became more comfortable with their role. Look, we've all experienced this. And the truth is, you'll likely experience it more until you get really good at identifying these people in your interview process. So this episode is about identifying and dealing with the internal terrorist. This is going to be a fun one. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. We help entrepreneurs and executives win the strongest people. We do so by sharing insights from top-performing rebel entrepreneurs, disruptors, and game changers like our guest today, Mr. Nick Curl. Now, Nick is the owner and general manager of Propel Swim Academy. Nick has always had a passion for working with children and families in and around the water. So at 16, he actually started his first swim lesson company, Swim to You, and later partnered with his mom, Linda, to create Propel Swim Academy. So today, Nick oversees Propel's operation as the general manager and is involved in all aspects of running and growing the company. Over the past 7 years, Nick and Linda have grown the company to serve around 2,000 weekly swimmers. Ooh, I love that. With an outstanding crew of 40 team members, which is what makes Nick the perfect expert for today's topic. Nick, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you, Rick.
It's a pleasure to have you, my friend. So we're going to talk about something that I don't know if it's near or dear to my heart, but it's something we've all experienced, which is, the internal terrorist, right? I would love for you to share a story because I think you've encountered one.
Yeah, we have. And it actually wasn't until towards the end of the story that we actually came up with the name internal terrorist, because it didn't feel that way at the beginning. So you want me to go into the story?
It never does. They seem great, and then it's kind of a slow burn, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just one little thing pops up and you're like, maybe they're doing this in good faith. They mean well. So you kind of brush it under the rug, and then another little thing happens. It's a little different thing. And so you're like, all right, maybe we'll try to course correct a little bit there, but nothing too serious. And then the little things just start to pile up and they get it more and more kind of insidious. And yeah, for us, it all culminated in a big blow up one evening at the end of the day when our internal terrorist, she was blowing up about the latest thing, and then told one of our managers that she and 5 other people were ready to quit if their demands were not met. So at the time, that was 25% of our staff. So that was a big deal for us to hear that,
Yeah.
Yeah. And the demands were nothing. Again, it was a series of little things, and so yeah, we sort of sprung into action. All the alarm bells went off. We were still coming out of our COVID kind of staffing crisis. So the idea of losing 25% of our staff in one fell swoop was a let's just say it was a good threat for her to put up.
For sure.
Turns out it wasn't true.
Yeah. As most often it usually isn't, right? But
right.
What I experienced was that you'd walk in on conversations, with the internal terrorist and maybe a couple other people where as you walk in, you get very quiet or they change the subject. You can tell something's just not right there. Like, did you experience any of that?
Yeah, totally. And that was kind of, the red flags in the beginning were a little bit more clear to identify, but then the real sort of the, like exactly like you said, you walk into the staff room, you kind of hear a spirited discussion going on in the room, and then you open the door and it goes quiet. And you're like, okay, maybe, I don't know what they were talking about, but then you hear about it happening with another manager. And then you hear from a new hire that they got cornered after their first day, with someone asking them how much they're getting paid, and it just kind of snowballs. Yeah, that was really our experience. It was the underground conversations, just a whole lot of little things.
What I've discovered is that this is a key indicator of somebody who's really not core value aligned at all. Right?
Mm,
Every company has different core values, but one of the things that I've noticed is that when somebody is just really kind of going against the grain of how the business operates, that at its root, that's core value alignment.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I agree. And that was kind of you just have this one person that starts to stick out like a sore thumb from the rest of the group. And and really for us, it was a matter of this same person dragging others down with
yeah.
them, which was the worst possible outcome. Uh yeah.
So you know what? It's so funny. And I think everybody who's listening right now is thinking of their own story and going, "Oh yeah, I had one of those." So, and hopefully
Yep.
they don't have them now.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard other people describe their person as the 1,000-pound gorilla that's just hanging on their back day in, day out. And yeah,
And the worst is when that person is a high performer. That's when it
right.
becomes problematic because then you don't want to let them go. But man, that's when you should definitely let them go. Because my internal terrorist was a high performer,
Mm,
and it was interesting. The month that person left, after that person left, our production shot up 300%. Like everybody was happier in the office. It was such a lighter place and everybody enjoyed coming to work. It was incredible the difference. And I was the one who really struggled with, "Well, we don't want to get rid of this person because they're making us too much money."
mhm.
So, are you
Yeah,
listening to the
right.
Higher Power Radio? Oh, you're
Go
listening to the
ahead.
Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard. For our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. All right, I'm digging in deeper with my guest, Nick Curl. Now, Nick is the owner and general manager of Propel Swim Academy, and we're talking about the internal terrorist. So, actually, more importantly, how to identify them, which we've already kind of done, and if you have one, who they are and what they look like. But how do you eliminate them, right? So, let's talk about your story about how you eliminated this person, and then what you've been doing to make sure you don't get any more internal terrorists into the organization. So, let's start with how'd you get rid of them? Tell me that story. Break that down for me.
Sure. Yeah. So, like I said, this was it felt like a very high stakes problem. We were potentially losing a quarter of our staff with no good replacements in the pipeline at the time. And so our whole leadership team got together. We have a very much a coaching and mentoring culture. So that was our approach to this was, okay, if there's a group of people in our company that have some serious issues and they're willing to talk to us about them, let's hear them out. The one thing that was really important in our plan was that we did not give them an opportunity to talk amongst themselves in between conversations. So we felt like we were planning out an assault operation on this group, because we were scheduling everything out and coordinating where these people were going to be and how we were going to make sure that they didn't cross paths during that 3-hour window that we were all talking to them.
So
So
you went
anyways,
SEAL Team 6. You-
absolutely did. Yeah.
All right. So you guys had this leadership meeting. What did you guys like? What was the exact plan that you implemented there? Like, what'd you come up with?
So our plan was, very, very simple at the beginning. Just hear these people out, see if there's if there's any weight to the claims or the threats that are being made, and really just kind of come back together after we'd met with everybody to see, we were really just fact finding at that point, gathering as much information as we could so that we could really make a better decision, because at the time we didn't know whether this was on us or if it was on them.
Well, you're
So
potentially dealing with some sort of coup, right? So
right.
what? So who were the conspirators? Was it one person, or did you have a group of people that were actually part of the part of the?
So we had identified, who these other 5 people um, probably were. It really wasn't very difficult uh, to identify those people, and we found out that basically none of them were actually planning on quitting. None of them had any serious complaints, and most of all, none of them knew that this one ringleader was going to implicate them in her whatever was going on with her in her life.
Got
And
it.
so that was a relief to find out. And so it really made the pathway much more clear for hitting our real internal terrorist.
Got it.
And the plan there again was fact finding. We're trying to see, did we miss something major? So yeah.
All right. So tell me about the meeting. So you did your fact finding. Now you call a meeting with this person.
Mhm.
Walk me through that.
So we start this meeting, and we're Linda and myself are sitting there, and our goal is just to be totally open. Like, this is like our in as a learning moment for this person. We were trying to show her that, like, this is the way. If you're having issues, this is the way that you do it. We're here to listen. We don't have a dialogue to, we haven't written a script for ourselves. We're just here to listen to you. And when put in that situation, she really didn't have much to say, other than that she wasn't happy. There were some vague complaints, nothing real specific, no specific examples. And so our our approach after that was just to say, look, thanks for sharing with us. We're going to chat and see how we're going to proceed forward. And so we ended the meeting there. We didn't really go into the meeting with a preconceived notion of what the outcome of the meeting was going to be. But after the meeting, it was very clear what the outcome was going to be. We wrote up essentially a list. We put together, basically a PIP document
Sure.
of sort of the behaviors we needed to see going forward from this person. We sent it to her in an email. We said, we need this on our desk before you come back to work. And we received an email about an hour later, a long email, essentially refusing to agree to the terms, and she quit, which was awesome. Honestly, the best possible outcome. So
For
yeah.
sure. For sure. It is funny. My scenario that I spoke about a minute ago, I was kind of devastated. What ended up happening was that person also was interviewing at a company and got an
Mhm.
offer. And what was interesting is they sent the offer letter to that person's email address at work. And that person was out of the office at the time. So we were checking each other's emails when we were gone because, we're in the search business. We've got
Sure.
we've got people interviews to set up, everything else. So it was just common policy that we did that. And it was really interesting when one of my other people found it. Um, it became a very easy conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's always best when they walk themselves out.
All right, so you were able to. I mean, best possible scenario, the person quits. You're relieved. Any aftermath?
No, we did explain to those people that were in this person's social circle at work what had
Mhm.
happened. We felt like we needed to have some say in the narrative of what was being said to them, because this person was seeming to be a little bit unhinged. So we had really no idea what they were going to say to other people in the workplace.
Yeah.
And so that was again, a worry that really didn't turn out to have any weight to it. But just like you said earlier, just the lightness around the workplace it was a tangible difference of, not just the leadership team, but every level of management. Everybody was just more relaxed because everyone had kind of learned to walk on eggshells around this person. And and there was just, people were suspicious, just a world, just culturally and for feel in the workplace, a world of difference.
I can imagine. You know what?
Mhm.
Funny story. When my person quit, um, one of the people that was working for me at the time put on, like, he used to always like to find like little video clips and stuff like that. So he
Mhm.
found on YouTube the do you remember in the Wizard of Oz when the wicked witch of the West got crushed underneath the house and they were all dancing around singing that song?
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, that's exactly, so he put that on and everybody was dancing around the office. Not that this
Great.
person was a wicked witch or anything like that, but I mean, the truth was it was very liberating, I think, for everybody,
Yeah,
for sure, and
absolutely.
probably for that person as well. So let's talk about moving forward. So obviously, you haven't ever hired another internal terrorist since then. So what did you do from a interviewing or a hiring perspective that is helping you guys to eliminate that?
So first of all was just getting more serious about our core values and our standards in every way that we possibly could. We wanted to be able to weed those kind of people out before they had any influence in the company or on anybody else in the team. And so it was, it really started simply by looking at our interview questions and saying, well, what kind of questions are we asking that might weed out these types of people. And so we asked about workplace culture, and we asked about what, other places that they had worked and what they thought workplace culture meant. And we found something interesting was that when we looked back at many of the bad hires that we had made, the people who say in the interview that they hate drama, those are the people who bring the drama. So
You
we
know
re-
what? That's like the dating scenario too, right? Where
yeah.
when you go out on a date and the first thing that somebody says, like, "I don't do drama," you run, right?
You're right, right, because they are the drama.
For sure.
So we really pay very close attention to that. Um, but but we also, in addition to just kind of looking at the way we're conducting interviews and digging deeper on what we really wanted to get out of the questions, it was really, I think, paying attention when a red flag popped up, because we assume that people are on their best behavior during an interview. And when they say something, or when we get that kind of inkling that that's a red flag, that answer was a red flag, not just kind of moving on. And we used to chalk it up to, oh, they're young, or they might have been nervous, or they don't know. We could interpret that in many different ways, but really digging deeper in those situations to be like, wait, you said this, and tell me more about what you just said there,
Yeah.
to really get to the bottom of it. um
I
so
found that there's 2, like, really good questions that are really simple to ask
mm,
just as a follow-up. So, wait, tell me more about that would be one, and then explain that to me. Like, how did that
right.
actually work? Or, again, when you get somebody talking, they start to get onto a roll and they'll tell you everything that you need to know. And
Yeah.
you're right, paying attention and keeping your eyes open, critical.
Yeah, and sometimes we found that, when we did dig a little deeper, we found that, oh, okay, that's the way you're thinking about this. Okay, now that actually is, our alarm bells are going back down now. But it really takes going that extra 2 or 3 steps in the conversation, um, to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And I would say that the other thing, similar to that is it's just like the whole way along, paying attention to the red flags and addressing, even if it seems like a small thing, what we're doing during that hiring process and the onboarding process is training people on what our standards are and how we expect our team members to behave, and just reinforcing that standard as many times as we possibly can.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's really like a critical component is that you're drilling down on ultimately understanding the behaviors that link to your core values that drive success in your company. And that's what
Mm.
you're paying attention to is, do these behaviors really align with how we operate?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
obviously the behaviors that you had from the internal terrorist, they didn't align at all. But I'm sure there's an environment where that person flourishes,
maybe.
maybe a hair salon or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it actually led us to, we didn't get there right away, but now today we have every single seat in our company. Every position has a document that we call our 5-5. And so it's loosely 5 main roles and then our 5 core values. And we break down those roles and what they mean, couple bullet points for each. And then we break down how the core values show up in those roles. So we break
Ooh,
down the
say that
core value
again.
be so we sort of define the roles first, and then we, on the next page, we define the role within the context of the core values. So that's the idea. So we're spelling out the behaviors that that would indicate that somebody in this role is a core values match. So it's different. There's some overlapping behaviors. How you treat your team members. That doesn't change regardless of your position. But we've found that in our company, people move to different positions, and some people might be in 2 or 3 seats. And every time they move into a new seat, one of our managers sits down with them and says, "Hey, this is how you live the core values in this position here." And so we like to think that we're giving our people a kind of a really good chance to understand what the core values mean to us, and how
I,
they show
I
up.
I love that so much because it's like going to school. You get a syllabus for how to be successful. Here's what's going to happen during the course of your time here, right?
Yeah,
Job descriptions, all they give is like, here's a bunch of crap that we need, and let's hope you fit the mold,
yeah,
right? Like, and
yeah,
and it's interesting because there's no roadmap to be able to tell somebody, hey, look at this is what your role is, this is what our expectations are, and this is how you're going to be judged. It's always
yeah,
kind of loosey goosey. And the fact that you have this documented, I mean, that's so powerful. And I think everybody should take that and really take heed and maybe build that into your business practice.
yeah. It's really been and just the process of creating those documents helped us as a leadership team to clarify those core values in a very different way than we had before. So I thought it was powerful in a few different ways.
That's awesome. All right. Shoot, we're getting pretty close on time, Nick. What would be 2 or 3 key takeaways you can give the audience that they can plug into their business today?
Yeah. So I would say one of those takeaways is just believe the red flags and don't sweep anything under the rug. So it would be, if you see something, say something. And also don't be afraid to reevaluate somebody's fit, from a core values perspective. So just because they were kind of living those core values at one point, like our internal terrorist was, when you start to see some of those behaviors change, it it could mean that they just really weren't being genuine in the beginning. And so for us, we've really gotten better at almost re-interviewing people and really testing them against our core values more than once.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So believing in the red flags, what else?
So and then I would just say communicating those standards and the expectations from the first time that you meet with people. We put our core values on the job post, and then every step along the way, we are talking to them about those core values. Like I said, we've clearly defined what those core values look like for every single position in our company. From even when we've got a new swim instructor coming in, we will say, you're a trainee right now, and this is how you live core values when you're in training. And then you become a swim instructor. Now you've got a whole different kind of set of ways that you live the core values once you're fully trained in your job. So just getting real clear with what the core values look like, so you can help your people to make that decision as to whether or not they're a fit.
Hey, words to live by. I'm loving what you guys do, Nick. Thank you for sharing that with our audience today.
Sure
and I
thing.
want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, what would be the best way in which members of the audience can find you, find your swim school?
So you can find us online, propelswimacademy.com. I'm going to go ahead and put my email out there. It's nick@propelswimacademy.com. So that's NICK at PROPELSWIMACADEMY.com.
Dude, I'm so glad you passed that spelling test.
As I was reading that out, I'm like, my email is way too long.
As most are.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
yeah.
Thank you for tuning to this week's episode of Higher Power Radio. Quick thanks to our team, Brian Colburn, Andrea Ballin, and Rick Girard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. After all, this show's for you, and we want to continue to bring valuable content to you and your business week after week. You can check us out further at higherpowerradio.com. That's HIREPOWERRADIO.com. Or you can drop me an email at rick@intertru.ai. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power Radio. Catch our LinkedIn Live show every Tuesday at noon, or download the podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you joining us on Higher Power Radio with your guide to hiring success, Rick Girard.